That's bad.
Well, I think this is one of those times that the haters are just right. So the whole goal of this truck was to run 12s for less than $3,600. And I failed because I made one crucial mistake. I put the wrong combination of parts in this thing. You see, this thing has a 5.3, which is a 325 cubic inch motor, and a power glide, which has really tall gears. So this thing just does not have the grunt to overcome all that leverage, basically, and keep the weight of this moving at a good pace. It can't 60 foot fast enough, and it can't backtrack fast enough. It just, with this setup, it just flat out can't. What I should have done differently is put either a turbo 350 or a turbo 400 in it. If I had done that, then I'm very confident this thing would have run 12s. But this thing naturally aspirated with the power glide. This engine just doesn't have the power to use the gearing properly. It is what it is. I've been testing this thing for like 4 days now, and the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster.
I got 141 and 2/3 chance of winning at sacrifice.
So I've been trying to think of the most cost-effective way to do that, and my favorite is the idea of changing the transmission. A turbo 350 would bolt right in, reuse the drive shaft, reuse the cross member, reuse my shifter, because my shifter has a little tab to go from 2-speed to 3-speed. Fucking greatest shifter on the market. These Hurst pistol grips are by far my favorite. Now, even if I were to build one of my 400s myself, that would be about $1,200 in parts, because if I'm going to build one, it's such a pain in the butt to do that I'm going to put a good valve body in it. I'm going to put a brake in it. I don't want to have to go back in there later and upgrade a bunch of stuff that I could have just done it right the first time. So that's about $1,000, $1,200. Don't really want to do that. I've got I've got two 400s over there. If I were to do that, I would have to change the yoke on the drive shaft. I think that this drive shaft would work just based off measuring things, but I'd have to change the yoke, and I'd have to modify the cross member. Not a huge deal there. A turbo 350 would literally bolt right in, wouldn't have to change anything. The converter, I also changed while I was testing things. This is the one that I just swapped in a couple videos back. This is a JEGS XHD 3500 to 3800 stall. This thing was slipping like a mother. Like, this had 12% slip. And the one that I put back in there is a TSI. It had about 4 to 5% slip, but it was made for a trans brake. So when you try to foot brake it, it's really tight. I don't know what it would get to on the brake with this thing, but I know it was built for a full-size turbo truck with turbo 400, turbo 5.3, and it was a 5,000 stall. So, like, even if we could get it to 4,000, that would be plenty to break this rear end. This is also the same converter that I had in the RX-7 when it went 9.5 at 140, which was also a foot brake car, because same converter, same transmission. So, transmission, as much as I think it would help us naturally aspirated, I think if this thing just had more power, like 200-300 more horsepower, this would work fine. Because this engine should make, let's be conservative, 300 horsepower at the crank. I feel like that's very conservative. That's about what they make stock. We got a cam, headers, and stuff like that in it. This rain is not letting up. Holy crap. Anyway, conservative 300. If we were to put, hypothetically, 14.7 pounds of boost to it, that would double it. We'd be at 600. 600 in this thing should be pretty dang good. Now, I know that some of you are going to say just put nitrous on it. I don't have most of my nitrous stuff anymore. We got rid of a lot of that. But I still have a lot of turbos and this blower. I did actually have the blower sitting on it yesterday just to mock things up, but I think the smarter way to go, we'll toss this log manifold on it, we'll toss this on 376 on it, and we'll be good to go. I've got a few other things that make this install really quick and really cheap. Basic things I have to get are a 3-bar map sensor, the EFI source one that I've used on a bunch of vehicles, 3-bar, $35 from EFI source, and it's always worked really well. I think that I have to get some oil lines, mayhaps. This I think is 12. This should be 10, but that's probably not long enough. So anyway, I got a lot of the stuff laying around that I think the most cost-effective way to improve this thing is just put more power to it. We're just going to put a turbo on it. So I know that some people are going to be unhappy about this. They wanted to see it taken to the track NA, but I've done the testing. This thing's not running a 12. It's not happening. I can put all my turbo stuff on it, a new converter for it that I can foot brake higher, and then we should be good to rip. So with all that said, long story short, we're going to take this header off. We'll leave the exhaust in place for now. This is just mock-up. But we'll take this header off, and we'll mock up the turbo stuff, see how it makes us feel. And I also, since we're going to be doing all that stuff, I've got this TBSS intake that we can put on it. Those are significantly better than the stock truck intake. I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say these made like 30 or 40 more horsepower than those ones. It could be even more than that. I might be being conservative. And then we've also got some fresh Snake Eater injectors to throw in this thing, some of their Pro Series. If you guys want anything from Snake Eater, use code SNIDERTRON for 10% off your entire order. It's a miracle. So let's get to work on this old pig and see if we can disappoint some people. Alright, so this is, I want to say it was an FP Performance. I mean, it doesn't matter who it's from. It's a Chinese log manifold. They're like between 150, 200 bucks now. They used to be like just barely over 100 bucks, but you know, COVID and all that deal happened. But I ended up scoring this one off a buddy of mine who decided he didn't want it anymore because he likes to do fancy stuff now. Lucky enough that it has a 2.5-inch V-band here, so I can just chop off the exhaust there and elbow it into the other side. That'll be real easy. And then I'll probably weld the wastegate on here somewhere, just like I did on Goldie, because I used a similar one on Goldie, but it was built by a Fowler Speed. It was a very nice like Schedule 41. This one's all cast, you can see. Like I said, it's just a Chinese copy, but people have made pretty decent power with them, and they're cheap and they bolt right on. Yeah, people have made, I want to say like 700 wheel with these, like as crummy as they are. So we will be able to just put our other O2 sensor here. Like I said, we'll have the wastegate in this neighborhood, probably kind of angling up like that as much as we can, and then we'll have some sort of wideband in the actual turbo downpipe. So let's get it on, see how it fits. I did end up notching this corner here because a plug on the head was there, but it should fit perfect now. Hopefully. Perfect clearance. We got clearance. And we're not going to worry about a gasket right now. This is just mock-up. Let's check plugs. They all look nice and easy to get to. Yeah, that's one thing about these log style manifolds. They're not the flashiest, but they almost always, unless you're in like an F body or something, they almost always fit really well. And we've got a bunch of room around the control arm. We're good there. We could actually leave our heater hoses intact, so that's nice. That fits pretty well, and we know the alternator is the highest thing up on the motor because that's where I had to cut the hood. So as long as the turbo is under that, which I think it will be, let's get this thing on there and start checking it out. Open up. Look at this cute little guy. So this turbo actually, I said this a few videos back already, but this turbo came off a 3,800 pound Malibu, and it went 9s with it. So this thing being 3,100 or so with me in it, I think, should be pretty darn capable, as long as we make our setup more efficient. So this thing should be small enough that we can foot brake it to help us get off the line, and then it'll ramp up a whole lot quicker, and we should be scooting pretty darn good. That's the plan, at least. Will it work? I don't know. I've been wrong already, so now we're just kind of having fun with it, seeing where we can get to. The feed and drain are already clocked. We'll rotate this, I think, to probably just come up through here, do a hot air setup for the time being. And we are going to be running it on 85, so, and it's not like we're going to be seeing 20 pounds with this thing off rip. But there's just not a ton of room for an intercooler in this thing. So that's partially why we're doing that. I do have a bunch of air-to-air intercoolers. I've got 4 there and 1 over in that corner there that I know 2 of them are very good. The other 2 are pretty good, and then I've got 1 that's meh. So let me get this thing clocked, and then start figuring some more stuff out. Oh yeah, I do still have to, I got some purple power. Let's go, purple power on the TBSS intake right now, soaking. I'll get this thing sprayed off, and then we'll throw that thing on. I'll probably use that rail and just switch this thing to like a Corvette style fuel filter regulator. I know some people are really against using those with boost, but I've got a buddy, Dick Ham, who used to do YouTube. I miss you, Dick. And he made 700 or 800 with his, and it was a very nice, consistent setup. Anyway, let me move some things around, see what we can come up with. I don't think that I have enough, because really this is going to be so tight that I'll probably need the 90 coupler out of that, like the silicone coupler, and I don't think I have any of those laying around. I know I've got a straight one right here, like that. I don't think that even goes to the throttle body. I think that went to a 3.5 inch thing, but I don't think that I have any of the silicone 3 inch to 4 inch 90s, which is what I'm pretty sure I'd need for that. We'll see what we come up with. Alright, I haven't really made much progress, but I'm hoping that's about to change. So we're going to ditch this alternator bracket. Obviously we're going to ditch this intake, but instead of using the TBSS intake, I want to use that sheet metal intake, because it's like I was thinking about it, this thing's not going to be on the road anytime soon, so I think I'm just going to rob that over here. It's already the right height for the injector, so I don't have to mess with that. I could, if I wanted to, actually just run those injectors, but I'm not going to. We've got some nice Pro Series that we're going to put in it. Those are the Snake Eater 850s out of the RX-7, which those ones have been on that 9.5 pass. So I think I'm going to do that. If nothing else, just mock it up and see how it looks. And we'll probably end up running it just because. But yeah, one thing at a time. So I'm going to start pulling all this apart and see if we can start making this S10 actually pretty nice. Also, I am not sure how I want to run this charge pipe into the intake. Like, the exhaust will be no issue at all, but trying to run the charge pipe so that it doesn't look stupid, like I could just snuffleupagus it right up and over that, like that, but then it looks silly. So I didn't really want to do that. I thought about snaking it under the frame rail and up through here into it. Unless I cut a bunch of stuff, which I'm not really against, there's just no room for an intercooler. I could do an air to water, but that's just a lot more expensive, because then you need the water tank or the ice chest, you need the lines, you need the pump, you need the intercooler itself, which I don't currently have one of those. If I'm going to do an intercooler, it'll be one of the air-to-air ones. I just haven't seen a way that I really want to do it just yet, unless I move this transcooler somewhere else or just get a different one, because this is a massive tranny cooler. So I think the only way we could really fit an air-to-air is if we move that, which I'm not against, but I like it. So one thing at a time. Let's get rid of this alternator bracket and the intake and set the other ones on, see how they look. night, man. Hopefully it's not too dark because the light's dead. But, dude, this is starting to look like a proper truck now. And with the new alternator mount, we've got tons of room to go down this way. This thing's looking pretty dang good now. Under the hood, at least. Look outside and it still kind of is what it is. So I'm still not sure what I would want to do for the exhaust off the turbo. I do really like the idea of a teardrop hood exit, but with it just being a little 3-inch, I don't know, might be kind of whack. Could step it up to a 4-inch, but for simplicity, we'll probably just cut down the RX-7 downpipe and make that work and just run it out the fender. And like I said, I need to figure out how I want to route the charge piping before I can for sure come up with where to put the wastegate, but it'll most likely be in this area somewhere. Because I don't think I want to put it on the housing again, because then that makes the turbo kind of not really usable in a lot of other vehicles. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this setup so far. And this is still just mocked up, so this still has the 850 injectors. Haven't switched the Pro Series in it yet. But after seeing this intake on here, I think I'm gonna have to use this because it just looks so much better. And they do make a lot more power than the TBSS one, especially up top in the RPMs. So yeah, there's really only a handful of things to figure out, and then we should be back on the road. I'm stoked on this. So I'm gonna do a little bit more of the tedious work, kind of off camera, you know, little stuff, fuel system, oil lines, things like that. And then, who knows? Maybe we'll fire this thing up. All right, believe it or not, we actually made the intercooler fit pretty well in here. Let me turn this light on. I am slightly bummed that I have to relocate the transcooler, which, if I got a smaller one, I could put it right here. But I think I'm going to try to just reuse that one and put it under the bed. Not flat, for sure, but on some sort of an angle, and hope that it works. But man, this thing's starting to look pretty dang good. So I'm gonna have to order at least one more 90 for down here, because for the life of me, I cannot find one. I thought I had a bunch of those 3-inch 90s, but clearly not. And then I just need, I think this is a, what is that, 2.5? Which I wouldn't make any bets about having one of those right now either, if I don't have another 3-inch 90. But yeah, overall, this thing's going together pretty dang good. So, a few things left to do. Obviously, tune, injectors, map sensor, oil feed and return line, charge piping, some vacuum lines. Like I said, remount the transcooler. I would like to redo the lines for the fuel system, which isn't a huge deal. And then, you know, this thing's pretty much ready to go back out and... Oh, and I've got AAM True Boost over there that I need to hook up since we're on stock ECU. I'm so used to Holley stuff now that I forgot about that. Oh yeah, it would help if I hooked the exhaust crossover up too. Which should be a little fun because this manifold points pretty much right at the frame. I think there should be enough room to kind of snake it back, but we're going to have to do like a real quick turn out of there. Everything else, though, is looking really good. Just taking it one step at a time. So I went inside for a little bit, cooled off because it is like 95 degrees in here, and up north, that's hot for us. And now I'm back out here trying to just get as much done as I can with what I've got here laying around. I know I'm going to have to order a few things, so just trying to be productive, you know. So with that in mind, I think the next thing we're going to do is cut up the exhaust. This is the original dump pipe off the RX-7 when it had its fender exit. It did have all that wrap on it over there. And we're just going to eyeball about where we need to be, give or take there. Cut this down, re-weld it, get it bolted up, and try to figure out where we need to punch our hole. So let's start chopping. Alright man, got the exhaust all done, and this thing, I hate to admit it, because I'm not a huge S10 guy, surprisingly, but this thing looks pretty rad. Check that out, dude. I do want to get a trim ring to go around the exhaust, because I think 3-inch exhaust for like a fender exit or something, they just look dinky. They look like a wastegate pipe from a distance. It's kind of like trimming the bush to make the tree look bigger, you know? That's kind of what we're going to do here. Except we're going to get a bigger bush to distract from the tree. But dude, this thing looks sweet. It's just dark enough in here that you can't tell how dirty the engine is still. But from like right here, you just see turbo, wrapped exhaust, decent intake, decent alternator bracket, intercooler. It looks pretty good. Like if you didn't know any better, you'd think this was a fast truck. It's not, but you'd think it was. I think we got a lot done in today's video. And man, this thing, it looks friggin' sweet. This is what this truck needed all along, let's be honest. Like, it was fun, NA. It was slow, but it was fun. But this should be a pretty decent setup. Like, the RX-7, not to get our hopes up or anything like that, but the RX-7 went 9s with a similar setup. Slightly different turbo. Actually, it went 9s with the eBay 7875. This is a better turbo. This one's rated for, I think, 750 horsepower. The eBay one, we were making maybe 5 or 6. The BBK intake that is now on the Skylark, and a Ford 8.8 rear end. But aside from that, very similar setup and very similar weights. If we can just keep knocking things out and get ourselves figured out, this truck could potentially actually be pretty quick now. And it's just fun to look at too. Like it almost, if you ignore the wheels and now the fender exit, I'd say it's pretty dang close to a sleeper. I mean, you look in there, bench seat, topper, paint peeling, missing the little bumper filler valance thing. It looks like just a little pizza delivery truck. So I'm sure some people are going to be pretty disappointed that we didn't run it at the track NA, but after testing it on the street here a bunch, it would have literally just been wasting money to go to the track and run high 13s. Regardless, now we've got a pretty fun truck. We just need to button some things up, get it finished, and just have some fun with it. So that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys need anything from Snake Eater Performance, use code SNYDERTRON for 10% off your entire order. Thank you guys for liking, commenting, and subscribing on all the videos, and I'll see you next time.